But we have our own Spetsnaz, you know, and they know how to kill people too. So I think that's the bridge that they're at right there. And the U.S. has got to decide if they're going to do anything. And so far they decided not to do anything. But I think they're trying to make a deal with the Russians that they remove themselves so they can get rid of this Assad and take over the country. It's all geopolitical positioning. I think they think in the final analysis they're going to fight Russia and China. And they're probably right. And they don't want them to get any help. Period.
Now China's got both sides of the Panama Canal. China has bases in Long Beach. China now has economic communities setting up around the country with Chinese working there, and truckers have reported that there are Chinese south of our border. I mean, this is you think they'd be just satisfied with growing all of the hemp over there and sending it over to this country, selling it to all the old hippies, you know? What's going on with China, Bob?
Well, I think first of all they've got very difficult financial and economic problems. 30 million people are unemployed. That's been the same for the last 3 or 4 years. Exports are starting to fall, just like they are in Germany. And they're both major exporters. Same thing has happened in Japan as well, although they have a different additional problem. They have a real estate bubble that hasn't really broken yet. They have inflation which averages around 15%, contrary to their figure of 6.8%. Although in some of the provinces it's lower and some of it's higher. You know, the people who live in Guangdong, they go over to Hong Kong and they shop. And items that they would pay 25 cents for in Hong Kong are $1 in Guangdong. And so Guangdong's got lots and lots of inflation. And of course it's a tourist area too. It's kind of like, you know, I call it Miami Beach or something like that. And so prices tend to be higher in areas where there's a lot of people going on vacation. They continue, China, to search throughout the world for commodities for their perpetually growing economy, although they could slow down quite a bit. And if you look at the freight figures, you'll see that they've been abysmal for the last few years, and especially lately. And those are the ship loadings going from one place to another. So the world is facing a lower economy, and that's really going to very negatively affect the Chinese. Now, the next question is, can they contain, what is it, 2.3 billion people? Would they have a revolution? Could be. So China is not in the best of positions. When the U.S. went into Libya, they told the remaining 1,000 to 2,000 Chinese to get out. They didn't shoot them or anything. They just said, you know, there's a plane, hop on it. And they had 32,000 people working there, drilling oil wells and laying pipelines so that they could take oil out of Libya.
The Chinese did?
And, oh yeah. And now the U.S. has kicked them out and said, you know, adios. So China's got its share of problems, and you know, having $1.3 trillion in U.S. dollar denominated securities, that's not a very good idea. It's a very heavy concentration. They should have been blowing that paper off since 1995 by buying gold or whatever. And they didn't do that. They built up this big nest egg that goes down in value every day. I mean, inflation right now unofficially in the United States is 11.2%. I mean, that's how much money they're losing on every dollar they have every year. It's just like holding their treasuries. U.S. treasuries being held by the Chinese. Let's say they get an average yield of 1%. And let's say that inflation's 11%. They lose 10% a year. I mean, that's not a very good investment.
Now, let me ask you...
If they dump them on the market, what happens is the dollar goes down in value and they lose even more money.
Let me ask you about, let's throw one more country into the mix. What about Venezuela? Chavez is asking for all of his gold back. What's going on with that?
Well, he's supposed to receive delivery here during September. Whether he will or not, I don't know. Incidentally, he's another subscriber. He was the one who introduced Fidel to the publication. This a number of years ago. I'd say 6, 7, 8 years ago. And anyway, he sees what's going. He knows what's going on, just like Fidel does. And which side they're working on, I don't know. It's too hard for me to tell. But they see some bad stuff coming. So Chavez could very well be dying. He has acute prostate cancer, and he's taking chemotherapy, which means that it's very advanced. And so I would think that, you know, maybe he might live a year or two if he's lucky. And I think this is his swan song, so to speak. I'm going to get all our gold back and screw those other people, those bankers out there. And that's what he's doing. And for his country, I think he's doing the right thing. He's done lots of things that are wrong, like nationalizing this, that, and the other thing, which is stupid because it cuts off his ability to get money for investment for his country, even from places like Iran and China. I mean, it's dumb. But anyway, he did it anyway. But I think getting his gold back is a good idea. Now the question is, can he get it back? And I think they've got to find it to give it to him, even if they don't have it, because the bankers don't want everybody to think that, hey, those bankers over there, they really don't have any gold, because they wouldn't send Chavez's gold for the people of Venezuela, so they must not have any. So they can't let that happen, so they got to send him his gold. If they don't, they're idiots.
Well, like James Forrestal said, McCarthy accused the communists of being stupid, and Forrestal said, well, you know, consistency is not the mark of stupidity. If they were just stupid occasionally, they'd make a mistake in our favor. What now? Are these countries, the like Chavez, like Libya, like Iraq, like Iran? Are we going after any of these countries that don't want to fall into this one world banking plan, one world government of the banksters, by the banksters, and for the banksters? That's a key behind globalization, isn't it, Bob?
It is, and they will go after every one of them, and we're going to have to pick them off and do away with them, and they know that. So it's either us or them, and people like you and I who are up front, we cause them terrible problems, and we're probably close to the top on their hit list.
Well, they've certainly tried to kill me, and they've certainly tried to destroy every business that I had. I mean, I've had magazines that sold for $1 million, and that was on Friday. By Monday, they had received so many threats. From what? It's not individuals out there that's making threats. It's not individuals that can contact every stockholder in a publicly traded corporation and tell them what a right-wing radical Clay Douglas is. Let me just to show you, just to give you a kind of an example. Here's some of the comments that I've got on my after the last few shows. You're a fascist. You don't understand democracy at all. You have a video entitled "The Zionist War on Freedom of Speech," but you kick anyone who doesn't agree with you. You're not a free American. You're a hateful, anti-Semitic Nazi. My grandfather killed bastards like you in Germany in World War II.
Well, there's a lot of people out there who just don't understand the serpentine nature of what we're dealing with here. They don't understand, number one, that the isms, socialism, Marxism, Leninism, fascism, they're all from the same genesis. They all come from the same nexus. They were all created by the same group of people to start and complete and control wars and societies. And people like that, they don't get it. The people who fought in World War II, they didn't have a clue. They thought they were doing the right thing, and they were, but that's not the point. The point was, the whole thing was a set-up job by the same group of people. It's the first thing I learned in counterintelligence. We had the Japanese diplomatic code broken, so did the British, in 1937. We knew exactly what they were doing, what their aims were, and so we invited them in to come in and bomb Pearl Harbor by lining all the ships up on them on a Sunday morning.
Matter of fact, I have a picture of Pearl Harbor from the Japanese point of view hanging on my wall here, and a friend of mine, Eden Rainey, was there in Pearl Harbor. They took their ammo away from him. He was a Marine stationed at Pearl Harbor. They came into the barracks and told him to turn in all their ammo the night before the raid, and they didn't. And they shot one of the planes down. He climbed up on the roof of the barracks to get and pull the pilot out, the body of the pilot out. Found a map on the pilot that showed the location of every ship in Pearl Harbor, with one exception, and that was the aircraft carrier Kitty Hawk had been kept out by the admiral, and the USS Arizona was bombed was put in its spot and targeted by the Japanese. And that they locked the base down. They threatened to lock the base down. Whoever pulled this pilot out of the plane needs to bring whatever they found to the office, or we'll lock the whole base down.
And the communications from ship to ship and ship to shore by the Japanese was all taken down in Morse code and deciphered. Their code was broken. All of it was sent to FDR, and he did nothing about it. They knew they were on their way. Tyler Kent was the man's name, who worked in Army counterintelligence, or Naval, I don't know which it was. And there's books been written about it. And I read a couple of them many years ago. Those kind of things interest me because I used to be a high-speed Morse operator. I used to take code at 252 words a minute, and the world record is 74 words a minute, so I was pretty good at it. And so those things interested me. But this is the duplicity and the evil of the people who control not only our country, but most of the countries in the world. And they keep on doing this to people, the inhabitants. I mean an example yesterday of the two sides during the war. The Americans are going to go into battle, and their chaplains have these masses and services and things like that for the men who are going into combat, and the Germans are doing the same thing. And they both think God's with them. In fact, the Germans on their belt buckle had God mit uns, which means God is with us. And
Bob, let me stop you right there, because I think I wrote a book 40 years ago. I'm rewriting it now and bringing it up to date, changing my typewriters to computers, but it's this programming, they've just programmed us so, and how do we break out of this? How do we stop? This is the same thing keeps happening over and over again, as you say. How do we stop that? Now, the only thing I could come up with was the concept of liberty villages, small villages of people working together, living together, and growing their own food and generating their own energy. That eliminates our need for the banksters, for the oil companies, for the pharmaceutical companies. Is there any other answer?
Well, I think, first of all, from the very beginning when I got involved 53 years ago, it's education, and goodness knows we hardly reached anybody in the early 1960s. But today we've got talk radio, which is going all over the world. And as I told you, I get subscribers and writers from everywhere you can think of. And then on top of that, we have the internet. And so we have devices available to us to educate those who would like to listen, or who are fortunate enough to come in contact with our message, so to speak. And so what we have to do is continue to do that, because the only step beyond that is something like what you've said, but how long is that going to allow you to stay out of harm's way? We don't know that. And so with this knowledge, people approach their elected representatives in every country and say, well, we don't want you to do that, we want you to do this. And if they don't do it, the people then know for sure the only avenue open to them is revolution. And that will finally dawn on these people, particularly when they're hungry, or are they going to some internment camp someplace. And then they will go forward and start the beginnings of revolution in each country, and not just the United States. And it's going to happen. And the people who plan this thing, they know that. And they think they're going to be able to use the military against us. And I get news for you. It's not going to work that way. The military is going to end up taking over the governments.
They've already planned that. I filmed the first Homeland Security meeting in my film True Face of FEMA, and Colonel John Brinkerhoff was lecturing law enforcement in Albuquerque, and telling them in case earthquake on the New Madrid fault line, an atomic attack, or a single outbreak of smallpox in a major metropolitan area, we'll need 400,000, 500,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops to control the American people, because some of them just won't follow orders. Oh, you mean the National Guard, Colonel? No, they're too expensive. Besides, they're going to be in Iraq or Afghanistan or someplace else. These foreign wars they're starting takes all of our troops and military men out of this country, and that leaves us pretty vulnerable to this invasion from the South. These uneducated people. I mean, in Cuba did the same thing to us, and they sent all their criminals over to Miami, didn't they?
Yeah, that's true, they did. And you might call it a Red Dawn scenario. But the military, and I'm not talking about the Pentagon, the military know exactly what's going on. And I've talked to many of them, because I do a show every Thursday called the Marine Disquisition, and they're ready, and they're going to take the course that I just described. And this is going to be no lay down for the Illuminati. If they think that American troops are going to try to put down the American people, are mistaken. They're not going to do it. And do they really want to do it? There are probably 120 million adults who have been trained in using weapons in the United States. And there's 450 million weapons in the United States. And out of that 120 million, 80 million have been in the military, and 40 million, or half of them, have been in combat. Now, if you were an army, well, let's say 3 million people, and you were going to try to tell the population of the United States, 310 million people, what to do, and your 3 million were outnumbered by, let's say, 150 million people who are heavily armed, would you want to take that task on? I don't think so. No matter what your superior firepower was, the numbers would overwhelm you. Look what happened to Germany and the Eastern Front. Their kill ratio was 20 to 1. And they still couldn't win because the Russians just kept on coming. Well, the same thing will happen in America. They can't win. And the military knows they can't win. And so the idea is if the president knows and control them, push the military into this position, we have to go to the military and tell them, we're joining up with you. Because we want to throw these people out of office, we want a new government, and we want all of these corporatists to be tried for what they've done, either civilly or criminally. That's how it'll all end up.
What about Obama? Now the Orly Tate has been kind of on his case about an attorney, been on his case for a while about the birth certificate. A judge finally told her, "This ain't your lucky day, lady." But if the president it wasn't born here, it ain't none of my business. Ain't none of your business. What's your take on that, Bob?
You get paid. Pretty simple. Probably $1 billion, $100 million. Who knows what he got paid? He got paid a lot of money to tell an attorney that something so absurd as that.
Bob, what about, you know, I keep going back to Russia because I've read Alexander Solzhenitsyn. You know, he talks about the gulags. We've got more people in prison in this country, many of them for drugs, and we discussed the government controlling a lot of the drugs that come into this country. They're bringing them into this country and then they're putting us in jail for them. And what do you got in your pocket, son? I mean, that seems to be a police state. Is this the way they're doing the American Revolution? That's why how many ex-cons do we have that aren't allowed to own weapons in this country now?
Well, I really don't know. I can't say, but plenty of them got them. In my issue for Saturday, I have a film that was taken inside a convenience store. One of these assailants who had just gotten out of jail walked in with a gun and said, "Get in the floor or I'm going to kill you," or something like that. And the clerk pulled out one and shot him in the face. And, you know, most people who want weapons can get them. And even if they're felons. I mean, look at the gangs in Southern California, 250,000 strong. They have better weapons than the Marines do at Camp Pendleton. So, you know, they're there, they're available, they're going to happen. It's the individual, not the weapon. That's really what the problem is.
But what about the whole prison system? I mean, if why are we putting more of our population in prison than any communist country out there?
Because it's a big business, and they want to get young black and brown people, for the most part, off the streets, and so they throw them in the can and they make real criminals out of them.
And they make money
off of not that what they're doing is right. The lawbreakers, they are breaking the law, but you give a kid 18 years old 7 years for having too much of some drug. I know what he's doing is detrimental to society, but putting him in jail, you know, with those kind of people who are in there, is not good. It would be better to make them work within society, like picking up papers along the freeway for 7 years, that sort of thing. And I think you get more out of people by doing that, and the cost would be a heck of a lot less. The cost in most states, on a federal basis, about $50,000 a year to keep someone in jail.
Why not just legalize everything, abolish all laws against victimless crimes? If somebody wants to kill themselves with heroin, let them do it, and you know, just and stop this whole prison racket. It's a racket, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. And my son-in-law got a doctorate in criminology. So I know quite a bit about it. I know Gary Fleck, who has written many, many books in regard to criminology and the use of firearms and things of that sort and how it relates to society. And he's a flying liberal, believe me. He's not a conservative, but his approach is academic, and I think it's correct. He's the chief guy of Florida State, and it's supposed to be one of the better schools of criminology in the country. And so I do know something about it, and it's a terrible waste. You're right, it's a racket.
And well, it's just like Prohibition. Who made our money? I mean, we made the Kennedys and the millionaires off Prohibition.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And he and his father-in-law worked together quite ably and quite profitably at that. Although Honey Fitz ran the operation, I know a great deal about that because I grew up in Boston. And so, and I knew Joe Kennedy. I never knew the Fitzgeralds. But they'd go up to Nova Scotia and load the boat up and come down to Swampscott or someplace and offload and go back and get another load.
And it was only the people that got penalized. They paid more for the money than if they went over. And they made, my God, they made all of our uncles and grandfathers into criminals. The farmers and ranchers, they made them into criminals. Suddenly they were bootlegger and moonshiners for growing their own fuel.
That's right. Yeah, the government is perpetually, in every country, historically, has always gone in the wrong direction. They don't understand humanation or culture in their own countries. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and you have to be adroit about it, and then nobody ever complains. But having prohibitions is foolish.
All right, Bob, we're out of time here, bud, and I want to thank you for being on my show. And tell everybody, and if you let everybody know that this is a great show, you've got great information and great insight, and I really appreciate it. I appreciate you being on my show.
Well, you're welcome. And if you have a copy of the show, send it to me so we can put it up on in the publication.
I will do that, sir. And let me tell everybody about my books. I've got 3 books out. 2 of them are fiction, 1 of them is not. One of them is called Mystery Babylon, and it addresses almost all of the things that we've talked about here. And it's all up on freeamerican.com. I will send you that show immediately. And Bob, thank you again for being with me.
You're welcome, and all of you who want our publication, a copy of it, theinternationalforecaster.com. The Forecaster.com, or you can call 877-479-8178. That's 877-479-8178, and get a free copy there. And they also have a special deal where you can get a free subscription, and the deal is terrific, so take advantage of it. And I'll see you again next month.
All right, Bob. Thank you again.
Okay.
God bless.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay.
Call recording has been completed.
Call Free American, 505-908-9498. Get your copy of the book.